Ready to lace up for a deep dive into the story behind Nike?
I'm game.
And we're not just talking about sneakers and marketing here, but a deep dive into the mind of the man himself, Phil Knight, through his memoir, Shoe Dog.
It's one thing to know Nike as this global brand we have today, but Knight pulls back the curtain and gives us this incredibly raw and candid look at the roller coaster of building it from the ground up.
It's true. It doesn't read like your typical, buttoned-up business memoir. Knight's writing, it's so personal and conversational.
Oh, absolutely.
Filled with these vivid anecdotes and even moments of self-doubt. You really feel like you're grabbing a beer with him as he tells these stories.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from those near-death experiences for the business either. I mean, those make-or-break moments that really define those early years.
Totally. So whether you're an entrepreneur, an athlete, just someone who loves a good underdog story, Knight's journey is packed with these golden nuggets of wisdom. Okay, so picture this. 1962. Young Phil Knight, fresh out of Stanford with his MBA, and he's got this, what's called a wild idea.
A wild idea is putting it lightly.
He wants to sell Japanese running shoes in America.
In America?
Yeah. Now, this is long before Nike, long before the sneaker craze we know today.
Right.
It seemed like a long shot, to say the least.
And what's fascinating is that Knight wasn't even a shoe salesman or anything. He was, like a lot of us, just trying to find his path, In fact, even his own father couldn't quite wrap his head around it. Like, at one point, he asked him how long he's going to keep jackassing around with these shoes.
That's amazing. But here's where it gets interesting. Knight, he had this deep-seated belief in this crazy idea. He loved running, believed in its power, and had this hunch that these Japanese shoes were onto something special.
He did. He had that fire.
He even writes in the book, what if there were a way, without being an athlete, to feel what athletes feel? To play all the time instead of working, or else to enjoy work so much that it becomes essentially the same thing.
Oh, I love that.
It really stuck with me.
It's that underlying passion that really resonates with readers, Knight wasn't just building a business, he was chasing a feeling. A way to merge his passion with his work. That's what gave him the courage to pursue this, like we said, crazy idea.
Yeah, even when everyone thought he was nuts.
Exactly. It reminds me of the saying, the only people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Absolutely. And this brings us to a really important takeaway for everyone listening. Knight teaches us the importance of embracing that crazy idea. Those unconventional paths, they often hold the greatest potential.
They do.
Because you're not afraid to explore the unknown, to take a chance.
Because if you only listen to logic and convention, just think how many groundbreaking ideas would never see the light of day. Sometimes you have to trust your gut, even when it seems illogical at the time.
So true. But, okay, let's say you have this crazy idea. You've trusted your gut. How do you get other people to buy into it?
Right.
And that brings us to our next theme, the power of belief.
This is where Knight's experience becomes particularly insightful, I think. He actually compares his struggles selling encyclopedias and mutual funds to and this is surprising, the ease with which he sold shoes.
Really?
Even in those early days.
Wow.
And what he realized is that it all boiled down to belief. His genuine, unwavering belief in the product and in the power of running itself.
Wow.
People could sense that authenticity.
You can almost feel that passion jump off the page when he describes those early days. Driving to track meets, setting up shop, pitching shoes directly to coaches and athletes.
Oh, I know. There were no fancy marketing campaigns back then, no online stores, just pure shoe-in-hand enthusiasm.
Exactly.
And it wasn't some calculated tactic either. It was genuine. Knight teaches us that passion is contagious, authenticity is magnetic, people can speed a sales pitch a mile away, but when you genuinely believe in what you're selling, that sincerity, that's what resonates with people.
This is such a good point because it's applicable to so many aspects of life, whether you're selling a product, an idea, or even just yourself in a job interview. That belief in yourself and your abilities, it shines through.
It's about connecting with people on a deeper level, not just trying to close a deal, but conveying the why behind your actions.
Now, speaking of deeper connections, Knight's journey takes us from the track to something he calls the Zen of business.
Okay, yeah.
It's a fascinating look at his philosophical side.
This is where things get really interesting. So as Knight travels, especially in Japan, he's grappling with Zen philosophy, these ideas of self, perception, and being present.
He even talks about kensho, this Japanese concept of sudden enlightenment, and he compares it to those aha moments in business.
Oh, yeah.
Those flashes of insight that can change everything. It's almost like he's on this parallel journey of self-discovery as he builds this company.
And it completely reframes his approach to business, too. It's not just about strategy and numbers anymore, but about intuition, adaptability.
I love that part in the book where he says, "But now I realize this was no race. There was a primal urge to compare everything, life, business, adventures of all sorts, to a race. But the metaphor is often inadequate. It can take you only so far."
You know, it's about embracing the twists and turns, those unexpected detours that inevitably arise.
It's about letting go of that need for absolute control.
And trusting that the path, the right path, will reveal itself as you navigate those challenges. Trust the process, no.
Trust the process, easier said than done.
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with millions of dollars and a whole industry that's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And believe me, the challenges, they just keep coming.
Oh, you're telling me.
Yeah.
But Knight had this remarkable way of navigating those twists and turns, and I think a lot of it came from the team he built around him. And this is where the story takes another interesting turn. Forget your typical corporate types, Knight surrounded himself with this band of what he called mavericks.
And mavericks, might be putting it lightly. You've got his former track coach, a social worker turned shoe evangelist, a wheelchair-bound operations manager. Talk about an unconventional team. Knight really embraced diversity of thought.
He did, and it's a great lesson for any leader out there. He fondly referred to this crew, himself included, as butt faces, which kind of gives you a sense of their spirit, right?
Yeah, totally.
Scrappy, unconventional, willing to challenge each other, but always united by this shared passion for what they were building. They'd have these late-night brainstorming sessions fueled by gallons of coffee and this belief that they could truly change the game.
You can practically hear the coffee pots brewing just thinking about those late nights. But it speaks to this key takeaway for anyone building a team. Look beyond the resumes.
100%.
Look for that shared passion, that unconventional thinking, that willingness to challenge, the status quo.
Absolutely. Because sometimes those most brilliant ideas emerge from those unexpected collisions of perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, speaking of important relationships, there's one that's central to Knight's journey. His partnership with his former track coach at Oregon, Bill Bowerman. Talk about a dynamic duo.
This is where Knight's story takes on this mentor-mentee layer that I think a lot of people can relate to. Bowerman was initially a tough, demanding presence in Knight's life, pushing him relentlessly, rarely offering praise. But their connection evolved into this true business partnership. And Bowerman, he became this constant source of innovation and inspiration for Knight.
And you can tell there was this deep respect there. But it wasn't always smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
Knight describes their dynamic as prickly at times.
Yeah, prickly is a good word.
They challenged each other, pushed each other's buttons. But through it all, there was this shared drive to innovate, to create something truly special.
And it led to some of Nike's most iconic breakthroughs.
Yeah.
One of my favorite anecdotes is this story behind the waffle sole. Okay, so Bowerman is obsessed with making lighter running shoes. He's staring at his wife's waffle iron one morning, and boom, the idea hits him.
Get out of here.
He pours urethane into the iron, creates a mold, and the waffle sole is born.
It's amazing. That story never gets old.
I know.
It's such a brilliant example of how inspiration can strike from the most unexpected places. And it highlights this point that Knight keeps coming back to in the book, those mentors who challenge us, who push us outside our comfort zones. They often play a pivotal role in our growth.
Yeah. It's about embracing those relationships that force us to up our game, even if it's not always comfortable in the moment.
Right.
Because the right mentors, the right partners, they can elevate our thinking and really push us to achieve what we never thought possible.
No one achieves greatness alone, right. But even with a great team, amazing mentors, Knight's path to success was anything but linear.
Oh, no.
This guy faced setbacks that would make most people just throw in the towel. Which brings us to another key takeaway from the book. Navigating challenges with grit.
And Knight doesn't sugarcoat these challenges at all. He talks about near bankruptcy, betrayals by business partners, legal battles that threaten to derail everything. He talks about production nightmares that would keep you up at night.
Oh, I bet.
Yet through it all, he persevered.
He had this uncanny ability to take those punches, adapt, and keep moving forward. There's this one story that had me on the edge of my seat where Nike gets hit with this massive $25 million tax bill. They're on the verge of collapse.
Oh, wow.
And Knight, he has to get creative. He rallies the support of his employees' parents, works with his savvy senator from his home state, And somehow, against all odds, they navigate that crisis.
It's a masterclass in resilience. Totally. And as Nike grows, Knight finds himself grappling with another layer of complexity, staying true to your values, especially in the face of phenomenal success. Because as Nike goes from this scrappy startup to a global powerhouse, the stakes get higher, the pressure mounts, and the decisions become even more consequential.
And this is where Knight's self-awareness really shines through. He's very open about wrestling with the tension between maintaining Nike's core values, that spirit of innovation, passion, nonconformity, while navigating the realities of being a publicly traded company with a global reach. I mean, it would have been so easy to lose sight of those core values as the company grew, you know? It's that classic dilemma of selling out versus staying true to your roots. Right. And one of the most striking examples of this is his decision to offer stock options to all his employees.
Right.
He firmly believed that everyone, not just the executives, should share in the company's success.
Yeah. Which, as you can imagine, that decision created a lot of millionaires down the road.
No kidding.
It was a radical move. I mean, almost unheard of at the time for a company of Nike's size.
Right.
And it really cemented that sense of shared ownership and purpose that had been there from the beginning.
Totally.
You know, Knight understood that true success, it's not just about the bottom line. It's about building something meaningful, something that makes a difference in the lives of others.
He could have easily kept all those profits for himself.
Oh, easily.
But he chose to share the wealth. And it speaks volumes about his values. It brings us to such a powerful takeaway. Success without integrity, it rings hollow.
It's true.
It's those decisions we make along the way, especially the tough ones, that ultimately shape the legacy we leave behind.
It's about staying connected to your why, remembering the reasons you started in the first place, and making sure your pursuit of success doesn't come at the expense of your values. It's a reminder that true success, it's not just about what you achieve, but who you become along the way.
Now, after taking us on this whirlwind journey, filled with these incredible highs and some, let's face it, pretty harrowing lows, Knight ends his memoir on a surprisingly poignant note. He writes that given the chance, he'd relive the whole thing. Every struggle, every triumph, every crazy decision. What do you make of that?
It's such a powerful statement, isn't it? It makes you think about the nature of success, you know? What it really means to achieve your goals. It seems that for Knight, the journey itself, those moments of uncertainty, the camaraderie, even the sheer audacity of it all, those were the elements that really stayed with him.
It's almost like he's saying that the pursuit, the struggle itself, is where the real magic lies. And it makes you wonder, how often do we get so caught up in striving for that next milestone, that next achievement, that we forget to appreciate the journey itself?
It's a good question to ask yourself, because it's so easy to get swept up in the pursuit of the destination that we miss the beauty of the journey, you know? It reminds me of that quote, life is not about finding yourself, life is about creating yourself. And I think that's what Knight embodies in this book, that constant state of becoming, of pushing boundaries, of embracing the unknown.
That's beautifully put. And it's a message that transcends the business world, don't you think? It's about finding that balance between striving for your goals, whatever they may be, and savoring the journey. The missteps, the unexpected detours, those all shape who we become.
Right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the mind of a shoe dog, here's something to ponder. What crazy idea have you been holding back on? What dream or passion are you allowing fear or doubt to hold you back from pursuing?
Remember, as Phil Knight's story so vividly illustrates, it's often those craziest ideas, the ones that seem impossible, those are the ones that have the power to change the world. And the journey itself, that's where the real magic lies.
So go out there, embrace your inner shoe dog, and never stop believing in the power of those crazy ideas. You never know where they might lead.